Waiters and waitresses, what are some signs you're serving a first date? Story 1. One time, I had a couple who were talking about what they had been doing the previous summer, indicating that they didn't know each other until recently. They ordered a bottle of 100 red wine, and when I came back with the bottle, the guy had started telling a gross story about how he was so hungover on vacation that his friends had to carry him inside the airport, where he had puked multiple times on various people, things, etc. Before she even finished her first glass of wine, the girl left the restaurant, and the guy stayed and drank the whole thing himself without ordering any food. The worst part was when he also chugged down her half-finished glass before he left as well. Story 2, when they come in and ask for tables separately, then sit across the restaurant from each other for 10 minutes before realizing the other was there. It was a blind date. Story 3, weird lulls in the conversation that consists of information friends partners should already know, like how many siblings they have, desert island movies, etc. Edit, well, my first gold ever. This is delightful. Story 4, staying way beyond being done with their meal and drinks, usually because they don't want to try to figure out if they're meant to be going home together or not. Story 5, when I was on my first date nearly 5 years ago with my now fiancé, we went to this nice Italian place, has drinks, salad, entree, definitely indulging, causing no first date. I wanted to have a good time with this girl. And before we even asked for the check, a fine-looking plate of cake came out, and the waitress said that our bill was covered by someone who wants to remain anonymous. All she would tell me is that the person said we were looking like we were having a good time and made them smile. I got to tell you, I was blown away by this act of kindness. And I also think that played a good role in me snagging a second date with the love of my life. We're still trying to pay the act forward and find an obvious first date out at a restaurant. One of these days we will, but you didn't really answer your question, but some patron noticed us and ended up paying a hefty bill on our behalf. Edit, fiancé. Story 6, on my first date with my now wife. Our waiter figured it out for us. We had been acquaintances for years through mutual friends, and when we agreed to grab dinner that night, neither of us were sure if the other was in it for a date or just dinner with an acquaintance friend. I guess we were being just awkward and giggly enough that our waiter, who had known us separately as regulars at this restaurant, blurted out, "Oh man, are you guys on a date?" We both just started laughing nervously while looking at each other and flopped sweating. The waiter felt the awkwardness multiply and backed away like Homer Simpson into a hedge. 9 years later, we're married. The restaurant went out of business, and I'm still not sure if it was a date or not. Edit, spelling is hard. Edit 2, thank for the silver. I will treasure it awkwardly. Not sure if it was meant for me or not. Edit 3, I've been assured the gold intentional. Thank for the clarity as I remain just as oblivious today. Story 7, I'm not a waiter anymore. But one time I was at a place, and the waiter came over when my girlfriend went to the toilet. He said how he thought things were going well, and asked if this was our first or second date. We had literally been together over 5 years at that point, haha. So, yeah, you guys aren't always right. Story 8, not a server, but a former barback, and one of my favorite things to do while working is to eavesdrop and try to figure out what the deal is between people having meals together. Here's some things that tell me that it is a first or possibly second date. What do your parents do? How many siblings do you have? What do you do for work? A surprising number of people, mostly male patrons where I work, no idea why we'll ramble on about their past relationships. I've learned to use this as an indicator that they're on a first or second date. I notice it so frequently that I've been tempted to tell them to stop. If the couple gets quiet after disagreeing about something trivial like an opinion of a certain band or activity, uncomfortably long pauses followed by something like "it's been so cold out lately." Story 9, that giddy little laugh at jokes that aren't funny. The look of new love, the awkward trying to get close, but shyness overpowers and maintains a distance. Also had a few women straight up tell me, so I help get them out of it. One woman paid me $50 to spill a drink on her, so she'd have to leave. Edit, more info. Yes, I did spill the drink on her. When he was in the bathroom, she prompted me for help. It was an iced tea. I had zero intention of charging it to help her. When I did it, the guy went nuts on me. Up until then, he seemed like a nice guy. He was terrifying, had me in tears. She left. He paid. After more yelling and complaining to my manager, who was in on it, then left. She returned and tipped me the $50. Her phone was lit up with messages from him. He was quite aggressive. Totally dodged a bullet there. We have since become friends. She always brings first dates to my work, and we have a code worked out now. Although she's currently dating a good friend of mine. They're super cute together. We also have a note in the woman's room that explains if you order XXXX drink changes regularly, we will help you leave without causing a scene. We have a similar note in the men's room, with completely different appetizer instead of drink yes. Men eating out now, and then too. Thanks for all the upvotes. Story 10, honestly can't usually tell. I have made it awkward before by saying you guys are so cute. How long have you been together before to get the response if they are on their first date? Whoops. Story 11. When he leaves before the food he ordered is made, I brought it out and she asked for the bill because he left. Brutal experience. She had to pay for his drinks and food. She didn't even want to pack his dinner up to eat later. This was not a cheap restaurant, but the tables were close together, so it must have been mortifying. I gave her the employee discount. Story 12. Not a waitress, but someone assumed me and my of 7 years were on a first Tinder date. I could hear them say it from the table next to us, so I reached over, took huge sips from his drink, and ate off his plate just for shits and giggles. I texted him about what and why I was doing this, and he laughed, grabbed my drink, and said, "So where are you from?" ABD set my drink back down in front of me. Good times. Story 13. Often arriving alone, looking around for someone, being a little nervous, but the dead giveaway is the conversation. It's always about mundane stuff that people wouldn't know if they were friends, colleagues, or have been on a few dates before. Childhood stuff like schools and towns you lived in, vacations which were cool, first date topics. Not ordering booze whenever the person who ordered first doesn't order booze is a good one too. If you go on a date and you want a glass of wine, beer, or cocktail, freaking order one. Doesn't matter, hush, just order sparkling water. They are nervous too. Take the lead, get a drink. Edit, you thank for all the upvotes. I really did not expect my poopy time comment would get this much upvotes. Anyway, I realized that some people in some country drive to bars. However, I work in pretty much the center of Amsterdam. We do not drive cars here. You must be a madman to drive your car, trough the narrow streets, canals all around, to a bar, on your first date. Show up with a car to your first date in Amsterdam, and the date is over before you've parked, because it will take a gazillion years to get there. So no worries, I'm not judging anyone for not drinking, but I am encouraging people to just freaking order what they want, when they want it, and believe me, I've not paid enough attention in school, so this is now my career joking. I did pay attention, but I love this industry too much, and I'm good at it. I can tell when people order they don't really want. Just order what you want. People, happy dating all. Story 14. Not a waiter, but I work at Starbucks. I can tell when a guy and girl meet. Shake hands in front of the register. They order together. The guy pays. Then they sit together, talking, laughing in the cafe for the next couple hours. Not sure why they're meeting at the register, but it happens a lot. If I was meeting a girl at SBUX for a first date, I'd meet at the door or a table and then go up and order together. Edit, fun, follow up. One location I worked at a few years back was also a frequent date spot. When we closed at 10 p.m., sometimes couples would finish up their dates in their cars in our parking lot and still be there when we left about a half hour later. I know, classy. One coworker I frequently closed with on a former police car and sometimes would have fun pulling up behind these amorous stragglers and turning the spotlight on the car. Instant hilarité. Story 15. I once waited an obvious first date where the guy was very shy and nervous. The girl that was with him was absolutely stunning. He kept his hands under the table and fumbled them around a lot. Whenever I came to the table, they visibly loosened up, so I talked to them for a minute and maybe told a joke or something because they seemed to enjoy it. I hope my boy got laid that night because I tried my best. Story 16. Pay attention to body language. At first, they are probably mirroring each other. A couple who is comfortable together and have been together will sit however they want. A first date will usually sit up like at attention. If it's going well, they might lean in towards each other. If it's not, they will likely put their hands in their lap. If it's bad, look for arms crossed or drinks thrown. Edit, there are no absolutes. Leaning in and smiling, arms crossed, and scowling. I guess when you're observing a table from a distance, you see the body language and begin to evaluate. It's not like I hover over tables scanning facial tics and expressions. You can get a sense through eavesdropping too, but good luck isolating conversations on a busy Friday night. Story 17. They arrive separately and confirm that the other person is the one they're supposed to be on the date with. It's also really obvious from someone's reaction if the other person doesn't look like their profile picture. Story 18. Served a couple the other day. The boys' parents came in, and we had their tables next to each other by coincidence. Everyone had a good laugh, and they moved tables. Story 19. Wow. So this happened last week. Had a couple and they were fine. I could tell they didn't want me around for longer than what was necessary. So I gave them their space. It was close to closing time, but I had a bunch of stuff to do, so I just let them gab. Two girls come in and are greeted by my coworker, tell her that they are this girl's friend, and just want to see what the guy looks like. She seats them within eye shot, but they're disguised with some ball caps and whatnot. They seem sketchy when I go up to them and mention that the guy looks like Jeffrey Dahmer and proceed to rag on him. Before I even ask them what they want, I walk right over to the couple and ask if they know these people. The girls bolt out the door. As they go past the window outside, they're yelling at the girl. You name it. She goes off to the bathroom crying, and he asks for the check. Turned out to be his ex and her friend who had been stalking him for 2 months. He also mentioned that this had happened before, and he thought he was in the clear after he stopped using social media. He did look kind of like Jeffrey Dahmer, though. When girls are playing with their hair, a lot. If I find tons of hair on the seat, I know they were nervously playing with their hair, or if they need their water refill for the third time and the appetizers haven't even arrived yet. I do the same things when I'm nervous at it. Obviously, not everybody who does these things is on a date. I don't give if you drink a lot of water or shed a lot. I just answer the question. Story 20 in my experience, which is mostly casual dining. One of them turns up a half hour early and has a nerve-calming drink before the other gets there. It's fun watching a couple start to open up their body language when they've been chatting a while. Less fun to watch one of them cower away, while the other just doesn't stop talking at them. Story 21 side story. A few years after I graduated high school, I was serving one of the bullies from my class. I could tell he was on a first date, and when he tried to pay with a card, I told him his card was denied. He had a second card, and I decided to run it, so his date wouldn't have to pay. Story 22. You can usually tell by attitude toward one another, or when they approach the host stand, or how they order their food. You can always tell when you're getting ready to drop the bill and asking them if they're splitting the check or not. Story 23. Same side sitters. Nothing funnier or more awkward than this annoying practice. Who is comfortable sitting next to someone with no one in front of you? Stop it. Story 24. I'm not a waitress, but I hope that somehow the hostess waiter that served my first date with my husband reads this and reminisces of my awkwardness. I met my husband on OkCupid. We'd talk for a few days and I'd seen a few pictures, but it's hard to be sure what someone will look like in person. We were supposed to meet at a restaurant that's like a small step up from Chili's, so he texted me that he got there first and had been seated already. Awkward, but okay. I walk in and stammer to the waitress something about meeting a date that had already been seated. She told me I could go look for him. I then awkwardly stammered about how I'd never actually met him and didn't know exactly who I was looking for. She laughed and pointed me in the direction of someone who had been seated waiting on a date. Looks a bit like the pictures, but cuter actually. I get to the table and make eye contact, and he's like, "Poodle mama," and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, that's me." And we shook hands. Oh my, it was awkward. Found out he thought there was a wait, so he put us on a list, but then they did have a table for two, so they made him sit. That was the reason for that awkwardness. So we wound up talking for 3 hours until they were closing. It was a great date. Now we've been married almost 2 years. We still joke about the first time we shook hands. Story 25. Not a waiter or a waitress, but I could definitely imagine if one of them tells you it's their first date, it would be a sign you're serving a first date. Story 26. They look a teeny bit relieved every time you disturb them until things change. Then if it's going well, you may as well have disappeared. If it's going badly, you're either surrogate friend, fallout shelter, or worst enemy. That part is actually more fun. Story 27. Talking about the menu way too in detail to fill silences, or using it to make conversation. I think I'll get mashed potatoes as my side. Tell me about your view on mashed potatoes. Story 28. I was a bartender at a wine bar that was a perfect date spot. Sure sign of a first date, a well-dressed guy arrives alone and downs a beer at the bar pretty quickly. Sure enough, within 15 minutes the date shows up. Some guys just need a little liquid courage. Story 29. These responses are pretty hilarious. Half are waiters convinced they know what a first date looks like, and the other half are people in long relationships whose waiters were convinced they were on a first date. Excellent thread. Confirmed waiters have no clue. Story 30. Person walks in alone. Says they're waiting for one more person who should be here any minute. Handshake or awkward hug when other person walks in, followed by apologies for being late, not ready to order because they're too busy talking, not looking at the menu. Fine by me conversation generally seems to be revolving around very basic info. What do you do for work? Did you grow up around here? Not going crazy on the drinks. Separate checks. Not always, but it is a lot more common now. As soon as both get up and leave, one turns right back around and comes and sits at the bar to debrief the bartender on their awful and awkward Tinder date. Story 31. It's usually about the banter. First date conversations usually involve a lot of where are you from? What do you do? What's your family like, etc. Physically, they have no connection yet. They're very different from new couple who are all over each other or longer-term couples who are just comfortable with each other. The way they will talk about the food always indicates if they have just met. They order safe date things apps that can be shared without too much touching. Serving. Women default to salads, almost always, although that's true in general. I worked in sushi for a while, and while the food is communal, there's a lot of trepidation around using chopsticks, not touching the other's piece, etc. My favorite are the first dates between a white guy and Asian woman. The assumption she knows everything about sushi, but she's Vietnamese, is hilarious to see. I also work in a place men would bring their sugar babies, and that's pretty easy to spot too, and totally different. Story 32. If it's a hetero couple, 7 times out of 10, if she's ordering a salad, it's a first or second date. Ladies, I don't know why you do this, but stop. Eat real food. If he can't handle you being a real human who eats real food, then go find another one. Plenty of men don't give a Disclaimer, I see you coming to tell me you order salads because you're nervous and not very hungry. That's fine. But I, too, am a woman and know many a woman to hide her eating habits in front of first dates. I promise as long as you aren't eating raw ground beef with your hands, it doesn't matter. Story 33, the usual. One person says something unexpected, and the other person is either subtly or visibly surprised. Yeah. So I was once on a date with this one girl, and she took a while, so I just started masturbating. Her this or that. Story 34, guy orders both meals, then asks if she wants anything else. She looks down shyly at the menu, and he asks, did you want cheesy bread? And her face lit up as she said yes, cute. Story 35, not a first date, but I did have a couple sit in silence the whole meal. The boyfriend was stone cold silent to me and appeared like he was overheating, thought about how awkward he was being, and assumed it was a first date. I work in a fine dining restaurant, so they were dressed pretty fancy. I close out their bill, and they leave. So this was on a Friday. And the bar near our restaurant hosts a karaoke. This bar is our local pub, and it has a dive bar environment, shitty food, shitty pool table, shitty jukebox, and most of the time filled with trashy individuals. Our whole staff came to the pub after our shift, and who is there? My table that was acting weird. They're sitting by themselves in the same silent way, and they stand out as they are dressed very sharp. I'm enjoying friendship and a tall PBR, when all of a sudden I hear cheering. I look behind me and see the guy proposing to his girlfriend. She said yes, they got free beer and then sat and were now smiling. Then it all made sense to me. That poor man must have been so nervous at the restaurant, where I can only assume he was originally going to ask the question. Story 36, no physical contact. Sitting exactly across the table from each other will full on eye contact, awkward broken conversation. Friend will actually do the most amount of laughing and touching each other. People who are dating for a while will be people watching and making jokes about the menu. Married people are complaining or whisper arguing. Story 37, I'm a former server. The couple is seated with him facing a wall, with a nervous look and demeanor about him. Her facing the open restaurant, looking cheery and very cautious and paying attention. The reason why she faces the crowd is so that if the date is bad, she can give other women the look so they can save her with a fake emergency or some other bullshit. If you ever go out to eat, watch the couple, especially the younger couple, and you'll notice that the majority of the time the girl is facing the open restaurant while the dude is facing the wall or something. Girls deliberately do that for their own safety. Story 38, my husband and I like to make comments while out eating like, you look nothing like your Tinder profile picture. I wonder if anyone has actually heard us and our stupid fake conversations. Story 39, my GF and I love when we are out to eat and we spot a couple that is clearly on a first date. Our evening now becomes us guessing who made the first move, who's more interested in who, stuff like that. It's like observing animals in the wild. Story 40, guess, am always on a first date with my girlfriend of 5 years. We always sit next to each other. We will stay well after the bill came. And we almost never stop talking. Story 41, I once served a cute young couple at the diner, maybe 17 to 18 years old, who were dressed up and looked to be on their first date. There was a game on the TV, but their table didn't have a good view of the screen. The girl had her back to the room, and the guy kept craning his neck to see the TV. And getting up from the table to check the game, I could see her beginning to feel humiliated and neglected. After a few minutes, on another trip away from the table, I took the guy to the side and asked him, are you on a date with that girl? And he nodded. I told him I'm turning off these TVs and you're going back to your date and you do not take your eyes off her for the rest of the night. To my surprise, he said okay. Yes, ma'am, and did exactly as I asked. And they both were all smiles by the end of the date. Story 42, I work at a restaurant bar in a mall. A lot of first dates come into my place. Usually it's instantly obvious just through body language. Almost always the guy is sitting with his legs toward the date, and the woman is sitting with her legs toward the bar. Conversation is almost always about pop culture, shows, music, movies, or other upcoming events. Maybe I've just seen a lot of awkward first dates, but I have to imagine picking a subpar Italian restaurant bar in a shopping mall leads to a not great first date. Story 43 had a boy letting a girl win at pool in a very obvious fashion, like she can't pot and he want. When I commented on this from behind my bar, he got all mad and grannied her. Story 44, not a waiter, but once when I was at a restaurant, there was two people eating their food in silence. They would occasionally look up at each other, but never more than a second. Then the guy clears his throat and says something to the effect of, so, have you seen the new space movie? I think it was Interstellar, but I forgot. She looks up and says nope and continues to eat in silence. I knew then that it was a first date that wasn't going too well. Story 45, I wasn't waitressing yet, just a hostess at the time at a barbecue restaurant. Not a fancy place, but we were featured on You Gotta Eat Here, so it was quite popular, especially when they showed a rerun of the episode we were featured on. Anyways, I saw a couple that wouldn't stop smiling at each other. It was a mixture of cute and forced to look nice after I saw the guy eating his ribs with a fork and knife. That was what completely gave it away for me. He didn't even finish his plate. Oftentimes people, especially males, end up making the comment, "Oh man, I need a wheelbarrow just to get to the car." Story 46, Hey Race, a crazy story. I was once at a bar with some friends and noticed these two people in the far corner who were obviously on a first date. I could tell it wasn't going well at all, and no offense to the guy if you're reading this, but his game was definitely off. I mean, the guy was wearing construction boots for crying out loud, in a nice bar on a first date. Anyways, I thought the girl was really hot, so I started thinking about giving her my number somehow. The perfect moment presented itself when the guy got up to go to the washroom. I simply went over to her and asked her how her first date was going. She looked surprised, but answered that she could tell that I could tell that I knew it wasn't going well. So I told her, "Hey Race is my number. Let me know if it doesn't work out with him." She discreetly took my number and put it in her pocket. I had given her my business card with my email on it. The next day, lo and behold, I receive an email from her. She's keen on meeting up and telling me all about how bad the date was. I invited her to my place because it turned out she lived only a few minutes away. After some time talking and getting to know each other, I realize she's the sister of the guy who brutally murdered my best friend. Story 47, the guy literally told me before the woman had came, then asked what the highest ABV beer was cause he likes to get drunk, but wants to appear as if he's only casually drinking beer. The date shows up, and periodically through serving the table, I hear him asking her about coming back to his place, so they can do it. Convincing her that he is an amazing kisser. Walk by, and she's mad at him for being too forward. The most surprising part was I saw them together not but a week or two later on a second date. Story 48, when they're overly courteous and flirty about whether or not to get an appetizer. Meal, we like to start off with an appetizer this evening. Person 1, all smiley and sweet, would you like an appetizer? Person 2, oh, it's up to you. And it just goes on for way too long. Story 49, for a first date, we went to Taco Bell. We both enjoyed it, and he turned me on my now all-time favorite, chicken quesadillas. Gotta get them with extra creamy jalapeno sauce, though. We ate in his car in a parking lot. Neither one of us liked the awkwardness of eating in at fast food restaurants. We still eat our to-go meals in our car. First date was a disaster, though. I was too shy and young, barely spoke. He thought I hated him. In reality, I had a crush on him for 2 years, so finally going out with him was just mind-blowing to me. Love this man so gosh darn much. I didn't answer the question, but I wanted to share. Story 50, they're old, and they're talking about their respective kids and other tedious bullshit at the bar. Then go into the dining room, spend 3 hours eating 2 courses, return to the bar for a nightcap, proceed to talk over empty glasses of ice until the place has been empty for an hour, and I kick them out. Story 51, what type of music do you like? JK. I saw a fair share. When young people are a little overdressed, or it's clear their button shirt is too large for them boys, or the girls have overdue their makeup. They're often shy and speak very low. I then have a guilty pleasure of being a little over the top, speaking louder than usual, not yelling. Just letting them know they don't have to whisper ha-ha. I'll also try to crack them a joke or two. Usually I make them laugh a little. It's very cute to see younglings on date. If they're nice, they'll pretend someone bought them a cake or a drink, but that would be me, lol. Story 52, bartending for 8 years. You can always tell because they take forever to order when people are on first dates. Once they order food and realize they've committed to an hour of being there, they either forget how to have conversation or they get into the real, truly good conversations. There is no in-between. It's get awkward or get real. Also, almost 100 success rate for first dates that order in a timely manner. They're not overwhelmed and nervous to the point they forget how to act in a restaurant. They stay cool and collected and stay on task. You can linger after you eat. If you linger before, you'll both get too drunk from drinking on an empty stomach and make bad judgment calls. Eat food. Story 53, it's usually the case if someone wants to wait on their guest before ordering a drink. I can always tell off the greeting to be sure. It's 100 if the guy arrives first and asks my name immediately. Use it throughout the night, and we're apparently friends. I bartend. Damn it, I'm always late to these. Alright, so bombshell brunette in a gorgeous red gown comes in and says she's waiting for someone. She gets seated at the table, and 15 minutes later the gentleman joins her. Now, part of my job in fine dining is to take in every detail of the guest to make the best decisions on recommendations based on any information I can glean. If you're wearing pajama pants and a tuxedo shirt in this place, you're either way out of your element or some kind of billionaire. If you order a Mac 18 neat and start with the steak tartar, I got some clues on where we're going with this dinner. I'm not judging, I'm just doing my job. Now this guy that joins her is wearing a stained polo that looks like it might have fit him 40 pounds ago, worn out slacks, and has unkempt hair. At a loss here. These two are so uncomfortable togier. They order a glass of wine each, and I card them and I memorize their names. This might come as a surprise, but I stalk them on the internet, as I do with many guests, and I find this woman's public Facebook page littered with horoscope posts. Today's horoscope reads, say yes to something you always say no to. Go on a date tonight, even if it's with someone you wouldn't think you're compatible with. Gemini is your friend today. I didn't know how to feel for the guy, like lucky him, but I wish he could have known what was going on. That man was the sloppiest eater I've ever seen. I had to scrub the walls of the booth when he was done. I don't know how that woman made it through the dinner. The whole date was just a wreck. Story 54, we are always asked if we're a new couple or recently dating, but truth is, we'll have been together for 10 years next year. We're just really open, talkative, and affectionate in public, and people aren't sure how our honeymoon phase hasn't ended yet. The trick is to find your best friend, and you know your soulmates when you find you cannot really survive a life without them. My only real wish in life is to grow old together and live every day like it's both the first and last time we'll hang out. Story 55, I'm a waitress, but this isn't a work story. This was back when I was newly single and before I met my current boyfriend. I was eating out at an IHOP with my friend, and we order food and are eating and talking, having a grand time, just chilling, when we notice this younger, attractive guy come in and sit at a table set for two. He seems nervous and is checking his phone a lit and shaking his leg, so we figure out pretty quick that he's on a first date, but then 10 minutes go by and he's still alone. Then 15, then 20, then 25. We felt so awful for him. So after 25 minutes, I get up and walk over to him and say, are you waiting on a date? Are they going to show up? I asked, I sure hope so. He said, well, if they don't, you can come over and sit with me, and it'll be your date. He had a huge smile and said that he will if his date never shows up. She did end up coming, though. And on our way out, we passed his table and gave him a huge thumbs up and mouthed good luck, and he smiled and waved and said thanks again. Story 56, body language. On first date, people are typically leaning forward, engaged with direct eye contact and active listening, responding to everything being said. I don't want to sound jaded, but that level of focus and attention to the conversation goes away after a few dates. Story 57, two people would walk around the bar very hesitantly looking for someone who's 5 feet away doing the same thing. Introductions and stuff, they'll sit down and take 10 minutes to place a drink order. If the date is going well, they keep ordering and they keep laughing. If it isn't going well, they'll just be staring at anything attention-grabbing. The girl always stopped drinking first. Story 58, served 6 years at many different establishments. Hate to repeat a theme, but under the table handjob's a real thing. Something I've had to bear witness to twice now, and can confirm it's definitely a new couple thing. Story 59, I've been a server and bartender for 3 years in San Francisco. Mostly upscale fancy places. Girls have this little blush until their date arrives, and girls almost always arrive first. They're awkward and embarrassed in their mannerisms. They forcefully decline to order a cocktail while waiting for the second half of the reservation, or they very eagerly do get the cocktail to calm their nerves. Then their date arrives and things change. Sometimes the change is good. They calm down, they lean in, they laugh a little extravagantly. Sometimes the change is bad. They order more drinks right away, or stop drinking, or sit a little further back in their seats, or preemptively decline appetizer dessert. The key to noticing a first date is noticing the change. First dates have that moment where the girl goes yeah or no, and it's so easy to see as a third party. I love watching dates because it makes my shifts funnier, and I like to write about them. Sometimes if I really like the guy, I'll do my best to help him out. They'll pour a little extra wine or bring a sexy chocolate dessert or something, but mostly the yeah-nah choice happens right away at the very start. Edit near the very start, but not at the first moment. It's not just looks, it's the whole gestalt of how the date starts. When things go badly right away, I think it's a personality mismatch more often than anything.